Welcome to the Fancy Comma YouTube. By request for Liz, here is a 30-minute ramble on public relations lessons I have learned from the Kardashians. So first let me say that I love the Kardashians. I used to watch the Kardashians a lot, especially when I was starting out as a freelance writer. I really love getting into the details of wireless technologies, and it's stuff that I really enjoy and kind of comes naturally to me because I'm a STEM-minded person. But I can only do so much of that. And I learned that freelancing because in college I could always write papers and not even think twice, like just do a deep dive into something, write a 7-page paper about it, and then I wouldn't have to do any more writing because my job wasn't a writer, my job was to be a student. But as a writer, you're constantly researching and analyzing, and sometimes it gets to be too much for your brain. When I was working and studying the intricacies of Bluetooth, like at the end of that day, I was like, my brain was utterly wrecked in like a way that it had never been wrecked before. So that's when I started to embrace my love of sort of like frivolous television, such as the Kardashians. But after watching so much Kardashians, I can say that the Kardashians aren't really frivolous at all, because watching the Kardashians taught me a lot about public relations. So public relations, in case you don't know, is all about relationships, relationships of you as a person to different organizations, to the media, to people on social media, to people that are your consumers, etc. There's a lot to it that as a scientist, I haven't taken any formal public relations classes, but I have done public relations, and I didn't even know I was doing public relations when I started doing it. Like, someone contacted me and was like, hey, you're a scientist. Can you write a press release for this science product we have? And I was like, yeah, I guess so. Of course I can. I told them, of course I can. And then I didn't know I had read press releases, so I had to Google it and figure out what a press release is. And then I started writing my press releases, and now I can write press releases really fast. I think press releases are something that ChatGPT will never be able to understand: human attention and emotion and stuff like that. I really enjoy writing press releases, and I've even written a press release for myself and distributed it for Fancy Comma stuff. When our first book came out, it made #1 on Amazon in different areas, and so I wrote a press release about that. All of that to say, that's what public relations is. It's about how people see you, but not just how people see you. You can't control people's perceptions of you, but you, as an organization, as a company, you have an image that you portray to the world, whether you do it super intentionally with press releases and stuff, or whether you don't do it super intentionally, maybe kind of more like Fancy Comma, where there's no commercials on. You will not see a Super Bowl ad for Fancy Comma because we are a very small business. I'm not even sure what that would look like if we had the Super Bowl ad for Fancy Comma. You could definitely chime in the comments if you have ideas for Super Bowl ads. Down to do a big fancy ad at some point, but I don't have $1 million. But the Kardashians do. What I'm saying is two things. First, as a science writer, your brain gets filled with stuff that you don't think about on a daily basis, but then maybe after you work on that project, you think about on a daily basis. When I got hired to do the Bluetooth project, which I actually not only wrote about Bluetooth, but also smartphones and the evolution of smartphones. And I learned a lot about, there's two major there's a bunch of smartphone manufacturers. Then there's different smartphones software. And then that whole thing, and it was actually for a client in the biomedical space. It was like biomedical devices. So it actually got pretty complicated. That's the other thing about being a freelance science writer, is you don't go to lab. You don't have a structured, quiet space to do work. I would be doing work, and it's like not in a research lab and not in an office setting, just with ambient noise happening, people interrupting you. You're like trying to study Bluetooth technology. Sometimes my work doesn't really feel possible, just because I really miss having an office. I mean, I'm in my office right now, but I really miss having structured time, but I also don't miss working so much. But the Kardashians, getting back to the Kardashians and their public relations lessons. Well, the first thing I learned about the Kardashians is that their whole life is exercise in public relations, because they're the Kardashians. Everyone knows them. They're very famous. They can't go outside without 9 million people recognizing them, being like, hey, you're the Kardashians. That gives you a lot of lessons about interacting with the world. The Kardashians, the sisters, then there's also Kendall and Kylie Jenner. They have their makeup brands, which I have a really good lip liner by Kim Kardashian. And that was pre-pandemic. I had that lip liner. I feel like I learn a lot about interacting with the world because their whole life is on TV, on Instagram, on social media, and I guess they make money from that, and that's why they do that. But they also just were born famous into from Robert Kardashian's family. He was a lawyer on the OJ trial, but that was like a huge deal, and it was like took forever. And now that I've learned about scientific evidence and the criminal justice system, it just completely reshapes my view of like scientific evidence. Like in the OJ trial, like they had a glove and they were like, this is the glove that doesn't fit OJ's hand. Therefore, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. And like that was like a refrain throughout all of the US and probably also in the world. So that's kind of the context in which the Kardashians grew up and then I guess became famous because they were related to they were the Kardashians. And so they're still really obviously they're just more famous. There's Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian's like the main Kardashian in my mind. She successfully was able to negotiate a lessening of a legal sentence for Julius Jones, who is on death row here in Oklahoma. So it's not like she does nothing with her life. She has a great social impact and a great desire to like improve the world, which is something I have in common with Kim Kardashian, despite the fact that they're like just the quote unquote Kardashians and they're just kind of like these vapid people. They actually kind of do a lot. Like, first of all, they provide entertainment for millions of people. They're active in the legal world. They create content online that a lot of people, basically millions of people around the world, follow and like internalize. They're so famous that like anything they do is just immediately turned into like the US social fabric. So it's kind of like Taylor Swift now, where like anything Taylor Swift does, like that one time she was I think she was at a football game. She was at Travis Kelce's game and she was eating chicken nuggets with like ranch dressing and ketchup, and I guess Taylor Swift's Twitter account tweeted out, Taylor Swift is eating chicken nuggets with ketchup and seemingly ranch, and that like became like this whole meme. But I think the Kardashians are like on a different level of that because there's a bazillion Kardashians. They're always dating famous NBA players and famous people in the pop culture world. They're a huge part of society, and I think that I wonder if they realize the impact they have on society. I'm sure to some extent they must. They like wear like a shirt or something and then it immediately sells out. Then they're like, oh yeah, anytime you talk about a product, it immediately sells out because you're the Kardashians. So that must be really interesting. That whole thing where they're constantly interacting with society is a huge part of public relations. They use it to their advantage. The mission of the Kardashians. I'm going to Google this. So Google has whenever you Google them, obviously has these questions. And one of them is, why are the Kardashians important? And I was like clicking it, trying to see if they actually came up with something. And Capital FM says, perhaps the biggest reason for their fame is their family show, which has unveiled all the best or worst bits of family over the years. From breakups to weddings to family feuds, the Kardashian and Jenner gang have been nothing but honest with their fans on the TV show. And that kind of goes back to the PR aspect of it, is like transparency and authenticity goes a long way in communications and in relationship building and also in community building. And then another question that it has is, have the Kardashians done anything good? Reportedly, they founded the Kardashian-Jenner Family Foundation, which has the purpose of raising awareness and funds for various causes, including the welfare of children in need and cancer research. Even though not much is known about it, the Kardashian-Jenner Family Foundation is under Kris Jenner's name. So here's another answer from Google. The Kardashians' influence has had far-reaching effects on our society, from promoting a culture of materialism and superficiality to distracting young people from pursuing meaningful activities like education or volunteer work, i.e. thinking about people other than themselves. I don't really agree with that because I think the Kardashians it's very hard to be in the limelight like that constantly, like, oh, Kim Kardashian did so and so, and then everyone goes and does that. Our culture prizes scholarly aspirations, stuff like that, but it also doesn't really support people to do that. So it's like, I was a scientist for 10 years. I was doing science, so like, who cares what other people think? And I don't really care what other people think of my job, but when it comes to the Kardashians, suddenly everyone's like, oh, the Kardashians are so lowbrow, they're so pointless, like whatever. But it's like many people watch sports and there is no point to sports. So why would you say that about the Kardashians? Because it's just the same thing where it's like you watch it to relax or to learn about the Kardashians or to see the different dramas that they have in their life and gain life lessons from them. There's a number of life lessons I've learned from the Kardashians. The one thing they do that I think they do really well, and I think Kendall Jenner does this especially well with her makeup line, is just like make everything that they do on social media and sort of in their videos and they're also maybe not in Keeping Up with the Kardashians because there was a lot of struggles in that show, a lot of drama, but they try to keep everything really fun. And I think that's a really good life lesson because why would you make life harder than it should be? But another thing I learned from the Kardashians in the PR world is branding. I mean, obviously the branding for the Kardashians, I don't know if what they do for their brand, but I mean, the Kardashians brand is, first of all, very, very well recognized. Secondly, there's a lot of things that you already know about it just from watching like TV and the news and stuff. They're very in tune with pop culture. They're very connected to just like things that are happening around the world. They like fashion, very fancy, expensive fashion. They've also learned a lot of lessons from being so famous. Like, remember when Kim Kardashian posted a photo on Instagram of like some diamond rings or something she had in Paris, and they immediately got stolen. The Kardashians have learned, like, wow, their social influence is actually very high, and people are just like following their every detail of their life and just like obsessed with them. And I think that's actually really hard to do, and also to do that in a way that benefits society, I think is really hard. Obviously, they have like security and stuff at their house and the Kardashians' house, because I saw that in Keeping Up with the Kardashians that they have a lot of like security, and they also are always eating delicious and healthy salads, and they have a chef. So from that perspective, their life is really easy. I really do believe that the Kardashians are PR geniuses because they are able to exist so effortlessly as people that get a lot of crap for just being like vapid, kind of like pointless people, but they're actually doing a lot out there. Like, I think they're doing a lot for for entertaining people, and that's why they're so rich, is because that's people actually like that. And it's weird to me because people like to hate on the Kardashians, but then they also don't have what do they do instead of watch the Kardashians? Like some random YouTuber. Like, what are they gonna do? Like go do some calculus homework and say they're better than everyone? Like, I don't understand the haterade. And I think the Kardashians don't care that people have that opinion about them because they have such a loyal fan base and such a community of people that are interested in them. I mean, I know to some extent, like social media and YouTube can really amplify someone and propel them to like new fame. And it's like people you wouldn't even expect to be famous, just like doing the most random stuff, like YouTubers. I'm perplexed by YouTubers becoming famous on social media. Like, the new trend that I've been watching is people that just eat stuff for social media and then they like get super famous. And it's like all they do is eat all day, but they have a following of like hundreds of thousands of people just obsessed with what they're eating that day. I find that, I guess, incredible in a way that the internet has made it possible for people to connect with others in such a way where we can find YouTubers that are tailored to our unique interests. Like Fancy Comma has very niche interests. I mean, you might not, you definitely would not get this video recommended to you like after a Kardashians video, but it's my goal to sort of bring some of that in. And it's not like, it's just the social aspect of the Kardashians that I really appreciate is their unabashed unimportance. They just do whatever they want, and that's their life, and their life is on there. And they're not doing quantum physics every day. It would be cool if they did quantum physics, maybe, but they're just doing whatever they do in their life, their different struggles, eating different salads, going to the gym, talking to their confidants, hosting galas, having birthday parties for their kids. And like, that's their life. They're probably really happy that they get to share their, not only live that life, but also share it with everyone. People think it's okay to just like bash other people's interests just because they don't like their interests. There's nothing wrong with watching the Kardashians. I'll link this in the description box, but apparently I am onto something because the Public Relations Society of America has this article called Four Things the Kardashians Can Teach Us About Good Public Relations. And it starts off, love them or hate them, there's no doubt you know them. Give people something to talk about. These are the lessons that the Public Relations Society of America has said that Kardashians can teach you. So I guess I was onto something. Give the people something to talk about. The Kardashians are always generating buzz about like everything they do, whether it's like they went somewhere, they wore this outfit, or they said this and such, or they posted this or that on their Instagram. And like, it's kind of funny to me because sometimes I feel like when I watch Kendall Jenner's Instagram, she does things like she'll drink heavily and do a get ready with me. And it's just like, not relatable, but I feel like I would do that with my closest friends, maybe, I guess, but I wouldn't do that for 5 million people, several million people to do like, but I guess it makes for good content, but it's fun. It's fun. It's exciting. It has good energy. Whatever Kylie Jenner wants to do now that Kylie Jenner is a mom, and the Kardashians are all moms, so they probably work really hard and they need to take some time to relax. And if content creation is a way for them to relax, then that good for them. They have a really important job, many important jobs. They have to be the it people of society. They have to be those people's moms. The Kylie Jenner lip kit, I guess that's a great example of PR that the Public Relations Society of America is talking about. Because I don't know if you remember this, but back in like 2014 or so, the Kylie Jenner lip kits like got onto the market because Kylie Jenner has her own makeup brand. And Kim Kardashian used to, I think, but it got discontinued, which is a bummer because it was a really good makeup brand. But the lip kits are like $30 each, and they have a lip product and like a lipstick or lip gloss, and also a lip liner. They're pretty good. I mean, I had several of them before the pandemic started, and then the pandemic happened, and I didn't go anywhere because I just stayed in my office and explained science to people. And then it's like when you do that every day, and it's like there was nowhere to go, there was nothing to do. And my time was much better spent as a science writer, sitting in my house, sitting in my office and working, because I was one of the few scientists that could explain science. So like I also really wanted to be plugged into the pandemic, but the problem was that I didn't get to go anywhere, so I never wore makeup. I didn't wear makeup for like several years. There's a dichotomy. It's kind of like you're either really serious and you do science and you're kind of frumpy, or you like the Kardashians and you're stupid and whatever. And like that's kind of a perception that I think is really bad in the science world. It's not as bad outside of the science world. Like, oh, you wore a stylish thing or you wore this cute outfit. Like you're obviously obsessed with like fashion. And that's why you're not a good scientist, because you like fashion. Like I swear that's kind of one of the messages I internalized as a scientist. And that's why when I left science and I got into the policy world, I was like, oh my gosh, everyone is really stylish here. Like I walked into the Capitol Hill complex and everyone was wearing stylish dresses. And I was like, I finally found my people. And yeah, the Capitol Hill people like the Kardashians. I'm pretty sure that Kim Kardashian's been to Capitol Hill like a few times doing various humanitarian things. I think that's really a problem for science and for sort of those technical professions where women, it's still very male dominated, that it's okay to like Kim Kardashian. I like Kim Kardashian. I'm an MIT graduate. I'm a scientist. I'm a science writer. And I don't need someone to tell me I mean, first of all, it doesn't, working as in any STEM profession, it's probably worse as a female, but even as a male, just regardless of who you are, I have heard the craziest people say the craziest things, and I'm just like, why are you doing that to that person? And so I think that it's time, and there's a number of people that kind of I follow a lot of people on my Instagram that on the Fancy Comma Instagram that are kind of dedicated to breaking down barriers. One of my favorite influencers is Emily Calandrelli. one thing I love is that she recently went to the White House and she was meeting Joe Biden, and I think she was doing something about science policy because, like me, she has a degree. Well, her degree is in aero aeroastro technology policy, which is actually aeroastro is probably the hardest major at MIT. And she always talks about on her Instagram, in science, she kind of internalized this message that you can't dress stylishly if you want to be taken seriously as a scientist. And it's just like, where did that message come from? It's a question in my mind. Like, why aren't people more, where are the people that like Kardashians in science? And if you're one of those people, please follow us on Fancy Comma, tweet with me at Fancy Comma, chat with me on Instagram at Fancy Comma, because I really wish that there were more people in science that appreciated the Kardashians, because granted, they're not scientists. I don't think they've ever done anything scientific in their life besides like go and get like a bunch of different like medical procedures. People love to just dunk on the Kardashians, but they're entertaining and fun. Like you would never do that to like someone that like to watch football. Like, oh, you like to watch football? That's not a serious sport. And I don't know why people do that. Do you know why people do that? Have you experienced this? I'm really obsessed with this now. It's cool to like the Kardashians. So then another thing that I like, that I also appreciate, that the Public Relations Society of America has pointed out is turn a negative into a positive. Oh wow, there's a lot of lessons here. Turn a negative into a positive. Any publicity is good publicity if you handle it right. To some extent, not all publicity can be good publicity, but most publicity that has like a downside can also be used. I mean, just look at the example of like Donald Trump. Like that guy, every day he's in the news for something or another. And I was watching the Colorado, the voters of the state of Colorado have kicked Donald Trump off the ballot. And so if this case went to the Supreme Court, it's like Donald Trump versus the voters of Colorado, which I'm assuming he will, even if he gets on the ballot, he's not going to win in Colorado, because has he ever won Colorado? It's kind of like a purple state. The hearing happened at the Supreme Court. Then immediately Donald Trump had a press conference and just kind of like made himself look really presidential, and he turned it into a positive for himself, kind of. And say what you want about Donald Trump, in my mind he's kind of like the Kardashians, though he's like on a different level of turning a negative into a positive, because think about all of the things that people have said about him in the past. Well, I mean, first of all, he's Donald Trump, so he's always been in the public spotlight. I wonder if Donald Trump knows the Kardashians, but he always is able to turn a negative into a positive. I was doing a deep dive into the 2020 elections for something I'm working on. Kim Kardashian seems to back Biden. Kardashian is friends with Ivanka Trump. But anyway, so the 2020 elections had the highest turnout of any elections, and 74,000 people voted for Donald Trump. So where are those 74,000? Did I say 74 million people? That's a lot of people. Let's see how many people watch the Kardashians. So they had like several different seasons, and every season they had millions of viewers. So probably there's a lot of people. So it's kind of the same. It's like once you have that many followers, like it's hard to lose followers. It's easier to gain followers. So if you already, like if you're like Donald Trump and you already have like 74 million followers, sure, you might lose some of them, but then you'll still have a lot of followers. Same with the Kardashians. Like they have so many people that follow like their every move that they're just going to continue being famous. But then it's like, does anyone really want to be famous at that level? I personally do not. Like I don't think I would choose to live a celebrity lifestyle, even though it involves being rich, jet setting and everything. But that's why it's nice to watch the Kardashians and get a flavor for like another aspect of the world, which kind of doesn't even really fit in socially with my sphere as a scientist, because people tell me that it's vapid and bad to watch the Kardashians. So then it's like, why would you tell your colleague that you watch the Kardashians? If you watch the Kardashians, don't tell your colleagues that you watch the Kardashians. Tell them that you watch Nova. Like I watch Nova every day. I love Nova, full of science facts. Like that's the one thing I absolutely cannot watch at the end of the day, when I've just like first of all, been tutoring students about English, and then the other is like agonizing over how I'm going to say something for my client. agonizing because it's important. Like how you say something really matters. And that's most of our work at Fancy Comma is saying things in a way that people can understand, but also effectively. And it's like after that, do you think you can do a deep dive into the mysteries of the universe? Like I personally cannot. Is there someone that after they do their work, they can just sit down and watch like a whole Nova episode? Like I love Nova, don't get me wrong. I love Nova. I love the Smithsonian Channel. I love watching military histories. I love space documentaries. I watch NASA TV, and I was really sad when NASA TV got canceled due to the government shutdown in like 2017, 2018. But I can't do that at the end of the day. At the end of the day, my brain doesn't work. I want to watch something really fun, lighthearted, entertaining that allows me to live vicariously. And if that means that I work really hard during the day and then at night I do something really pointless, like Keeping Up with the Kardashians has been canceled. But so one thing I like to do is watch makeup YouTubes. And that's kind of how I got into being a YouTuber, is by watching YouTube and like getting obsessed with YouTube. So one of my favorite makeup YouTubers is Tati Westbrook, who has been a YouTuber for decades, and I really don't know how she does it. But I'm really she's kind of like at the level of Kardashians in my mind. She's pretty famous. There's a number of things Tati Westbrook does that are very iconic and that people that follow her know. She says stuff like, holy smokes. And then her editing is really good. And I wonder, for these YouTubers that are getting really famous, do they edit their own videos? The Space Gal says she doesn't edit she doesn't have a team of people to edit her videos, but there was a video she did and it was amazing because she did a get ready with me. And then it was like, get ready with me to go on a nuclear submarine. And I was like, oh, that's so brilliant, because no one would associate nuclear submarines with makeup. And it's like one of those things where it's like you've been studying a nuclear submarine. Like that's a very complex, because it's not just a submarine, but it's also the nuclear component, and like that's really complicated and very engineering heavy and probably very male dominated. She normalizes being your authentic feminine self and also engaging with engineering, because when I was a student at MIT as an undergrad, it was not like it was, sure, we all like to dress stylishly at MIT. We are in fact the world's cream of the crop in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. To be the best at something, you can't just only do that. You have to do a bunch of other stuff. You have to be good at communication. And that's what I was doing when I was on the communications requirement committee, was helping MIT students communicate better. And then you also have to figure out where your work plugs in with society, because at the end of the day, STEM is done in the context of society. So it's like, you shouldn't feel guilty. And I hope that no one that's watching this feels guilty for their hobbies that they have, that they really enjoy, that other people don't think is quote unquote highbrow. I think that's so judgmental of people. And I think it doesn't come from it comes from a place of not understanding their fellow scientists and colleagues, especially women in science. It's really hard to be a woman in science because there's so many men. But it's like, there's always men in everything. And now I'm a writer and there's like no men in writing, and it's like really bizarre. So it's like, I almost miss that, because politics is also apparently politics is notoriously sexist. But when I went to work in Congress, I saw that my whole office was like basically women. So maybe my office was just amazing. I think my office was just amazing. That was a really good office. At the end of the day, what you do with your time to relax is yours. If you don't relax, you'll end up with mental health problems. You will get burnt out. So take time to do things that are important, that you like, that are important to you. Like, who forces themselves to kill their brain and do something complex just because other people say? Hopefully no one. So anyway, this is everything I've had to say about the Kardashians, just without any preparation, because Liz requested this. So here you go, Liz. These are my thoughts. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'll definitely, if you have any topics that you'd like me to just ramble on about for 30 minutes or more, let me know. It's not just about the Kardashians. It's about this idea that you can't have hobbies that are pointless and fun. You totally can have hobbies that are pointless if you think they're fun, because the whole point of hobbies is that there's something that you like to do. So if you have a hobby that you like to do that would not get the Nobel Prize in like physics or economics, like, good for you, because not everything you do has to like get social approval from all of your peers, your coworkers. You can do fun things that you do just for the purpose of making you feel happy and fulfilled. So, fancy comment viewers, I challenge you. This is my challenge for you. We've been through so much as science writers in the pandemic, working every day to serve other people, to help them understand science better. Maybe some of us have forgotten how to have fun. And that's one thing I'm really struggling with, is like having fun, because there's so much work to do. But if watching the Kardashians, if you want to watch like mindless YouTube makeup get ready with me's, and you feel like that's not important enough, or it doesn't get you the like, you don't feel smart doing that, hey, why not watch it anyway? Because at the end of the day, like, I can't tell you how many transferable skills I've learned from watching YouTube videos. Like, honestly, like, first of all, in a YouTube video, and this is, we don't get science communication training as scientists, so I've learned a lot of my random public relations lessons from YouTube, the Kardashians. People should do fun things that they enjoy. I hope you got something out of this, even if it's just, it's okay to have hobbies that other people don't find intellectually stimulating, because you're not doing your hobbies for them. You're doing your hobbies for yourself. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit the bell and subscribe so you don't miss my future rambles. I'll catch you later.